Do you have a glass of wine with dinner? Do you drink beers at social gatherings? Do you think your moderate alcohol intake isn't bad for you, or even might be moderately healthy? Well, think again. A new study, published in the journal The Lancet, analyzed alcohol-related mortality data from 2016 and found that alcohol was involved in almost 10% of all deaths across all ages. This means that in 2016, there were 2.8 million deaths linked to alcohol. This doesn't just include overdoses and alcohol poisoning, it also includes alcohol-related heart diseases, alcohol-related cancers and infections, as well as self-harm and other acts of violence that have been perpetrated while under the judgment-impairing influence of alcohol. The study also found that even small amounts of alcohol consumption were linked with negative health outcomes. Emanuela Gacadao is a professor at the University of Washington, and she was a lead author of the study. Professor Gacadao said, quote, "The most surprising finding was that even small amounts of alcohol use contribute to health loss globally. We're used to hearing that a drink or two a day is fine, but the evidence is the evidence." Unquote. This new data is, what's the right word? I want to say it's surprising, but it's not as if this is something that no one suspected. I want to say this is controversial, but the damaging effects of alcohol are common knowledge. They're way too widespread and obvious to be ignored. Now, there have been some studies finding associations between light and moderate alcohol consumption and certain health benefits, like a study a few years ago that found that a glass of wine at dinner several times a week was linked to a slight decrease in heart disease risk and overall risk of death. But the links aren't very strong, and they quickly disappear with even tiny increases in alcohol consumption. Other studies have found conflicting data, such as one published in April in The Lancet that found that even one drink a day could shorten your life expectancy. Excessive alcohol consumption is a problem worldwide, and in some places, it's really bad. To get into this, let me lay down some statistics that shouldn't be too surprising. The study found that close to 2.5 billion people drank alcohol around the world. About a quarter of them are women, and 3/4 of them are men. Men also drink more than twice as much as women on average. Now, European nations tended to consume more alcohol, whereas Middle Eastern nations tended to consume less. And this is rather predictable, as alcohol in Europe is a cultural staple, whereas in many Middle Eastern countries, it's religiously prohibited, or it's socially taboo to be inebriated. In 2016, China had over 700,000 alcohol-related deaths. India had a little less than half of that at around 320,000. And Russia had more than 220,000 alcohol-related deaths. Now, to put this into perspective, China and India both have far more than 1 billion people, while Russia has less than 150 million. So proportional to the country's total population, Russia's problems with alcohol-related deaths are disproportionately huge. Russia is known for its extreme problems with alcohol, where excessive vodka consumption is a big contributor to Russia's low life expectancy. A Russian male has a 25% chance of dying before he turns 50, and there's an extremely high likelihood that vodka was involved in his death, either through immediate injury caused by inebriation, or through alcohol poisoning, or by a more longer-term thing, like a heart disease or another health problem that was caused by chronic drinking. In comparison, the United States, with more than twice as many people, had less than half as many alcohol-related deaths as Russia, at around 90,000 in a population of about 310 million people, give or take, in 2016. There are many more societies that have their own problems and issues with alcohol, and it seems like no matter where you go, wherever alcohol is, it's associated with problems. Health problems, crime, violence, the list goes on. And this is coming from somebody who enjoys alcohol. One of my favorite beers is a dark Guinness. I really like the heavy, meaty taste of it. But just because I enjoy it doesn't mean that I ignore the health problems that are associated with it. I acknowledge that, and I drink relatively infrequently. Anyway, back to the science. The biggest finding of the study was that there was no amount of alcohol consumption that led to improved health outcomes. Stephen Bell is an epidemiologist at the University of Cambridge, and while he wasn't an author of this particular study, he has performed closely related research on the health outcomes of alcohol consumption. And about this most recent study, he said, and I quote, "Based on these findings, at no point is there a level of consumption that appears to lower the overall risk of developing any of the wide array of diseases investigated, in comparison to non-drinking." The take-home message being that people shouldn't drink under the belief that it will lower their risk of disease, and those of us who opt to drink should minimize our intake if we wish to prolong our life and well-being. Unquote.